In the last few weeks, I roasted the Springfield XD, questioned whether or not Glock was perfection, and people have asked me to kind of talk about my carry gun, the HK VP9, and if it's all that or not. So the VP9, German tactical Tupperware, but is it the best? Let's talk about it. So the VP9 is really HK's first striker-fired gun in a long time. Not their first, but their first in a long time. They're really known in polymer guns for their hammer-fired gun, in particular the P30. And the VP9 is very much built on the P30 platform. And a fantastic little striker-fired gun. This gun is not nearly as popular as the Glock or the Springfield XD or the Smith & Wesson M&P. This particular one is my kind of backup VP9. It is my dry fire gun. I normally have a training barrel in it. This frame has about 5,000 rounds through it. This one is my carry VP9. I carry this gun every single day of the year. You can see that I've put an RMR on it and some suppressor height sights. This particular frame has about 14,000 rounds through it. So people ask me why I transitioned to this gun from the Glock 19 that I used to carry. Well, really there's a singular big answer for that, and that's because I'm wrong-handed. As someone who is left-handed, I absolutely adore this right side controls on the gun. The gun is actually, truly ambidextrous. And that was really important to me. As somebody who shoots right-handed, most people are used to using the left side of the gun to actuate the slide stop lever and to use their thumb over here to drop the magazine. However, as somebody who is correct-handed, I had to adjust those things all the time. So as a righty, for most people, they use their thumb here on the left side of the gun to depress the magazine release, drop the magazine out, put a new one in. As a lefty, I've had to use my trigger finger for basically as long as I've been shooting handguns. And that's okay for me. One of the things I do love about the HK VP9 though is the paddle release. So you can see underneath here that it actually has an ambidextrous paddle release, and on both sides of the gun, no matter where the gun is in either hand, you're gonna do the same thing. I personally use an index finger to drop the magazine out of this gun. I've done it the whole time, but one of the things that I love is if I'm right-handed, guess what? I can do the exact same thing. True ambidexterity with the magazine release. Unlike the Glock that I had that had a reversible magazine release, but not really an ambidextrous one. I also really love the ambidextrous slide stop lever. So again, very standard on the left side of the gun that everyone is used to. So you can use this if you want, and drops the slide no problem. However, very few are truly ambidextrous, and most guns, if they have one on the right side of the gun, it's almost useless. It's usually even smaller because they're worried about it being up against your, out there where people can see when you're carrying it, and so it's almost useless. This HK one though works really, really well. I have never had a hard time getting that gun out there, bang, 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 doing what I need to. If I go to do a reload, I can drop the slide without even really thinking about it. It works really well. So those things got me really interested in thinking about this gun. The other thing that really kind of caught my attention about this gun is that when it came out, there was two things. Number one, that it was said that this gun had a really excellent trigger out of the box for a striker-fired gun. Number two, that it shot really soft, that the felt recoil in this gun was significantly less than some of the other tactical Tupperware that was on the market. I found both those things to be true. You know, if you start talking about striker-fired triggers, yeah, you can put a lot of money in aftermarket parts in them, but out of the box from the factory, really there's only two guns that have really fantastic triggers. One is the HK VP9, the other one is the Walther PPQ. I liked the trigger release, or the magazine release, the paddle releases on the VP9 far better than I did on the Walther, and that's what led me this direction. Trigger on this gun really is awesome. You can see there, we got an empty gun. You can see the thing that I probably love best about this gun, you press that trigger, really wonderful trigger. It's got a fairly short reset. It does come out just a little bit from the reset, but the stack is really soft, it's really easy to find, and this trigger does not require any futzing with from the factory. You take it out of the box, it runs really sweet as often as you want to run the gun. As far as felt recoil, I really feel like this gun does a good job. It shoots really soft, particularly if you shoot it right next to a Glock 19 or even a 17. In my opinion, in my hand, this gun shoots softer and feels softer in recoil, so I feel like I shoot it faster, though if I put it on the clock, the differences are not astronomical. You can get this gun with factory night sights if you want. I didn't. I got the standard ones. They're photoluminescent. They They work fine, 3-dot sights, they're great. One huge advantage in design, a simple advantage in design, but a huge one. You can see the gun is unloaded, nothing in the chamber, nothing in the magazine well. When it comes time to knock this gun down, one advantage this gun has over the Glock is you do not have to drop the trigger, you do not have to pull the trigger to disassemble this gun. What you gotta do here is you lock slide to the rear, take the takedown lever, move it to the downward position, then drop the slide, press it down, pull it off the gun. I did not have to pull a trigger on this gun. Now, is that a design flaw in the Glock? Well, it's one less thing that could go wrong. Even if, God forbid, some reason that there was a round in the chamber of this gun, it didn't go off, so that's a good thing, right? But if you think this gun isn't reliable, gotta be real, I'll show you that. That's what the backside of this gun looks like right now. It's had about, I don't know, 1,500 rounds through it since I cleaned it. Look at the slide. Let's see if I can get you to see that. Ew, yucky. Now, is that gun still reliable? This gun was used this weekend in a class. Goes bang every time I pull the trigger. 14,000 rounds down the pipe. As long as you don't drop it in a mud puddle and then try to use it after you've abused the tar out of it, it runs. And that's what meets my standard. Now, is it a perfect gun? No, it's not a perfect gun. There's no such thing as a perfect gun. First thing, number one, these are HK magazines. Now they're fantastic. It's a P30 mag. Fantastic magazine. They're also 50 bucks. 50 bucks? Are you kidding me? First thing I bought this gun, I wanted to get a whole bunch of magazines so I could train and separate my duty mags from my training mags. 50 bucks each. I spent almost as much in magazines as I spent on the gun. Now, I'd definitely say it's not a perfect gun. If you look, I've actually put an RMR on this one because I figured that transition out a little while ago, so I had to replace the sights. I think that the finish isn't quite as strong, and you can see this is my carry gun, and one of the things you can see, it's got this little, cock assists on it on the side, and I broke one of them off really fast. That's not really a usability problem, but you know, if you want to keep your guns pretty, this one may not be it. One of my huge problems with HK is their marketing towards civilians. Those of us who are not in the military, if you're not in law enforcement, it seems like their motto towards the civilian market is, you suck and we hate you. It's impossible to get them to do anything. It's impossible to get them to answer your emails. It's impossible to get anything out this way. I suck and they hate me so bad, I asked them repeatedly for an HK VP9 SK to test as a test and evaluation gun. Guys, I run the largest, most viewed gun channel on YouTube, and I asked HK multiple times. Do you think they sent me a gun? Nope, they ignored me, ignored my emails, because I suck and they hate me. And so I had to go buy this one at full retail. This gun is what started us down the path for the unbiased gun reviews that we've started doing, because I said, fine, I can't get one from them, I'm just gonna go buy one then. If someone wants to give me crap about carrying a VP9, what they almost always do is they send me a link to Tim from the Military Arms channel saying, oh, this gun's not reliable because he dropped it in a mud puddle and then he picked it up and it wouldn't fire correctly. You're right. It didn't. And maybe if you drop a Glock in a mud puddle, it'll still fire. But guys, I've watched 12,000 gunfights. I've narrated 1,000 of them. Do you know how many guns that I've seen dropped in a mud puddle and then used in a gunfight? That number approaches 0. So it's not really a concern of mine. Another thing I find kind of baffling is the multiple combinations of side plates and back plate. This gun comes with 3 plates for the left side, 3 plates for the right side, 3 back straps, and so you've got all kinds of combinations here that you can go to, and it can get a little bewildering to go, wait, which plates do I have? Which do I go with? What's the best fit and feel for my hand? And you can spend a lot of time messing around with this gun. I find that any of them work just fine for me, and so I don't put a lot of stress in it, but some people do, and if you do, that's a disadvantage to this gun. Another disadvantage I find from this gun is that it's large for what its capacity is. It's bigger than a Glock 19, it's just slightly smaller than a Glock 17, and yet the magazine only holds 15 rounds. There's a geometry problem here, and I'm not an engineer, so I'm not telling you what that is, but I feel like it's bigger than a 19, so it should have a higher capacity than a 19, but it doesn't, only 15 plus 1. So if concealment is the biggest issue for you, that's a disadvantage of this gun over a Glock 19. This thing right here, this little cocking indicator, is silly to me. This is just needless, because you can see after a little use of the gun, it's really hard to see that red. If you're real careful, get the right angle, you might be able to see the red in there, but it's worthless anyways. I mean, listen, I don't care if the striker is back. I care if the chamber is full. And guess what? This gun is empty right now, but I still can get the striker back, so I really care about what the chamber is doing, and I can't do that with the striker. So this to me is It's just a useless little thing that is supposed to make people feel better, but I don't think actually helps them any. So it's a needless piece of engineering. Now, some people have said to me, well, John, now the new Glock Gen 5 is fully ambidextrous now. It's got the slide stop lever on both sides. It's really not fully ambidextrous though, because the magazine release is reversible, but not fully ambidextrous. So somebody's asked me if I'm gonna go back to Glock and back to a Glock 19 now in Gen 5. I'm open to it, guys. The biggest thing for me is that guns are, I try not to have sentimental value in a firearm. This is a bullet thrower. I put about as much sentimental value in this as I do in a hammer. And if somebody said, what's your favorite brand of hammer? It's a hammer. It hammers nails. This is a bullet thrower. It throws bullets. It would take a little bit of work to get me to go away from this platform. I just said platform. That was super operator. Please forgive me for my operatorness and my stupidity. It would take a lot to get me away from this. And the reason is that I have investment in it. And so there'd have to be a significant advantage to get me to overcome the holsters and the second gun and the extra magazines and the training time I have on this trigger to go to something back to something like a Glock Gen 5. But I'm open to it. It'd have to be a definitive advantage. Personally, I don't see the advantages there to get me to change. But if a gun came along that had significant advantages, that did it better than this one did for me, then I would change. So in an overall sense, do I like this gun? Yeah, I like it a lot. Carried it now for a couple years. I think almost 3 years that I've carried this gun. I'm very happy with it. I plan to carry it for the foreseeable future until something better comes along. You find a plasma pistol in the 40-watt range, I'll carry it over this. You find another wonder gun that will do better. If the Blastomatic 9000 comes out that does things better than this does for me in my situation, I'll change from this in a heartbeat. Until then, VP9's a good gun. Super reliable, shoots soft, fantastic trigger. Gun does everything I need, ambidextrous exactly like I want. What more could you ask for, even if I suck and they hate me?